41, County Fire. Ask clerk to introduce the item, please.
A hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance of the local responsibility area fire hazard severity zones as recommended by the Office of the State Fire Marshal.
Okay, we have County Fire in the house. Mr. McLean, when you're ready, and you got him.
Board. My name is Kevin McLean, Battalion Chief Fire Marshal for San Luis Obispo County Fire. I'm here today to present the local fire hazard severity zones, which were released by the Office of the State Fire Marshal on March 10th. On March 10th, 2025, the Office of the State Fire Marshal published updated maps identifying fire hazard severity zones in the local responsibility areas, also known as the LRA. The updated zones will be applied statewide across all jurisdictions. The county must adopt the maps within 120 days per Government Code Section 51179. A little background on these is after the 1991 Oakland Hills fire, Assembly Bill 337 required the State Fire Marshal to evaluate very high fire hazard severity zones in the local responsibility area. In 2021, the law was amended to include both moderate and high fire hazard severity zones. Common question we get is, what is an LRA? LRAs include incorporated cities, urban regions, agricultural lands, and certain desert areas. Local governments are responsible for wildfire protection in these areas, managed by city fire departments, fire protection districts, counties, or CAL FIRE under contract. Fire hazard severity zones are determined by factors such as fire history, fuels, topography, which influence wildfire risks over a 30 to 50-year period. These assessments do not account for the mitigation efforts like home hardening or fuel reduction. Here's a sample of the map that was given to us by the State Fire Marshal's Office. The State Fire Marshal's Office uses an extension of the state responsibility area, fire hazard severity zone model, as their basis for evaluating fire hazards in local responsibility areas. Outside of the wildlands, the model considers factors that might lead to the building being threatened, including terrain, weather, urban vegetation cover, and blowing embers, proximity to the wildland fire history. In this case here, the government has really pushed forward, or the Fire Marshal's Office really pushed forward the ember cast as we've seen in previous fires. Government Code Section 51179 requires local agencies to adopt the State Fire Marshal's map by ordinance within 120 days. We cannot decrease the fire hazard severity zones. We may only increase at our discretion. There is no appeals process. County Fire is not increasing any other areas. Part of this, we were required to make fire hazard severity zones notifications public within 30 days of receipt and posted at the county's recorder's office, assessor's office, and planning agencies. And this is just indicating that we did do those. We placed them at all the locations, the assessor's office in the North and South County's office. With the fire hazard severity zones come implications for development. Wild and urban interface, also known as WUI codes, in Chapter 7A govern the design and constructions of buildings in high and very high fire hazard severity zones in the local responsibility area. Additionally, new construction in very high fire hazard severity zones must comply with the California Code of Regulations Title 14, the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, the Subdivision Map Act, the Subdivision Review Process, and the safety elements of the general plan. Here's we posted a picture of the requirements of what comes on. As you can see, the most restrictive is probably the very high, coming down to the high and the moderate areas. The state law requires defensible space clearance within very high fire hazard severity zones in the local responsibility area and mandates natural hazard disclosure for real estate transfers in both high and very high fire hazard severity zones. the county, we must establish a defensible space program and inspection program. The fiscal considerations with this would be implementing such a problem will require dedicated funding for personnel training and enforcement efforts. Initial costs may include staffing for the defensible space inspections, administrative support, and technology or software to track the compliance. This slide illustrates the increased fire hazard severity zones within the local responsibility area of unincorporated San Luis Obispo County, including areas governed by community service districts. And I'm here, thank you very much for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Pashon.
Yeah, so all I'm getting is, right, people are afraid of this map. But is there a map that has more detail to it so I can figure out when I talk to constituents what street they live on or what area it is, so I can really kind of boil it down? Because the ones that I've seen don't really have a grid on them.
On our website, you can log into our website off of calfireslow.org under the Fire Marshal's page, and we have it broken down. And there is a link there that I can take you where you can actually type in your address and bring it to that.
And so just put in the address and it does
Yes,
take care of it.
and if that's not up and running, it's linked to the State Fire Marshal's website, Fire Hazard Severity Zones, and those will be on there as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Supervisor Paulding.
Yeah, a couple questions. Kevin, I want to walk the public through how to get to that page. So you go to calfireslow.org, and then you click on
About, click on fire prevention,
you click on prevention, okay.
and underneath that, it should be Fire Marshal's office. Fire Marshal
You
plan.
know what, I'm going to stop right here. Is there any way we can create a banner for this on the page? Something that's a little bit more easy for the public to navigate, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. You know, because when I was going through that process on my computer with you the other day, it worked. Then I tried to do it on my phone. It didn't work. Let's make sure that we just have that verified and updated.
Yeah, and absolutely. And there's another easier way as well. Just
Okay.
Google State Fire Marshal's Office, Fire Hazard Severity Zones, and they have the map there on the front page as well.
Okay. And I guess my second question goes back to the fact that we know that we can't appeal the mapping. In this case, the State Fire Marshal has said, and it's codified in the law, I guess, that there are no grounds for appeal, no process for appeal for our county. I guess in our discussions, you know, I was thinking maybe our board could send a letter saying we're frustrated with that because we've had a lot of constituents reach out that have mapping that implicates their property rights with, you know, a lot of legitimate questions around the methodology utilized to determine those, in these cases, the very high fire severity zone. You know, in that discussion, I think where it led is that this is a matter that we might want to take up with the state legislature because they're the ones that created the law that didn't allow for us to have an appeal process locally. Is that the course of action that you would recommend to this board that we take if we have issues with how these maps were determined?
From my understanding, yeah, it would have to be a legislation and go to Sacramento to get it changed because I believe the State Fire Marshal's Office is just acting off of the government code sections that they're required to follow.
Okay. Well, when we deliberate on this, I'll make the comment then that I think we should add that to our legislative platform. And then in terms of outreach, I know this is my second and final question. People are concerned about their fire insurance rates, their home insurance rates. And, you know, I've been told in the discussions we've had that this doesn't necessarily have an impact, but we do know that insurers are going to look at a bunch of different factors. And we don't necessarily have a lot of insight into what those are, being that in many cases they're proprietary. Is there anything that you can tell me or that I can tell my constituents to give them some peace of mind? Or are we doing anything to coordinate with, for example, our state insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, on this issue?
Under our website, they did submit some documents that the State Fire Marshal passed it out, and I have those on our website, and I can also forward it. If anyone calls our office, we can send it to. The State Fire Marshal is very clear to us that this was not intended for insurance. This is for fire hazard risks, for planning development purposes, and not for insurances. And the insurance based theirs off a risk, where we're basing ours off a hazard without any remediations being placed onto it.
And that information is on our website.
Those under links then, yes.
Okay.
But there also should be on the State Fire Marshal's website as well. If not, we'll make sure those are clear and relabel them and get them under that front of the banner. They'll take them right to that section.
Thank you. Certainly appreciate that partnership and getting information out. Our offices are all going to continue to field a lot of questions on this issue. Thank you.
Good suggestion on the banner. That's great. Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
Supervisor and Chair, the banner will be up tomorrow on our webpage.
Great, thank you.
Then-
CAO Pontes, appreciate that. We're going to open up public comment, and I thank you very much, Battalion Chief McLean.
Thank you.
Okay, so public comment, we'll start with Anthony Ancelohaber. No relation to our, no, are you related? No.
Yes, of course. How can I not be? So yeah, I found out about this when the LA Times put their front page cover story March 25th. And so I went and I did some digging because, I worked for Kern County and I did a lot of GIS work over there. My degree's in computer science. So I did some digging and I found out, whoa, you're in a very high fire hazard zone. It's like, how did that happen? So I kept doing some digging, doing some calling. You saw my letters there. I ended up downloading all 7 gigabytes of their geodatabase and looking at their 20 GIS files and looking at every one of their maps. And it's consistent. I mean, there's no doubt the map's wrong, their fire map's wrong. But as you can see from my correspondence, they have no interest at all in making any changes to their map for whatever reason that is, probably afraid of generating, because there's millions of people that got tossed into this zone. So it's a problem, and I hope that, I'm just here today to hope that you guys do what you can to make a change to it and allow some sort of appeal or review of these things. And I'm here if you have any questions for me too, because I've been trying to talk. I mean, I still haven't heard back from the guy in charge, David Sapsis, since that, April 9th? He never wrote back. You saw my last response I got back from the fire marshal's office, which was very short and conditioned, on a certain time frame, whatever that is. I mean, those wildlands, they were taken out in 2017. Aerial showed they were gone. So I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, appreciate anything you guys can do to help us with this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Harold Joseph, followed by Janine Aria.
I have some material that I hand out as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. My name is Harold Joseph, and Tony, thanks for the information. He's done a great job pointing out the issues. There are real errors on the fire map, and I wanted to give a little bit of background. Several of us have spoken with Dan Turner, the Executive Director of SLO County Fire Safety Council, and Baxter Boynton, the SLO Fire Safety Focus Group Area Coordinator. They are setting up some fire-wise communities. Several of us are trying to do that in our area too. This is a very important issue. The issue that's a problem is, as Tony pointed out, that the map is not correct. They need to be updated. If you look at the information I gave you, I just gave you a few different pictures. It shows the old map and the new map, and then it shows the section in our community. And you actually have 570 homes or more that are in this very high fire hazard zone. And that area, as it shows, has been cleared of trees and is just houses with very low vegetation, very low things. It doesn't follow the guidelines that the county puts out, or that the state puts out. This is an important issue. The problem is that people, when they look at that, don't believe the fire safety data, and that means they're not going to take action. And that's a terrible situation. Some people are talking about complaining to the state and also talking about sending out information, on public media or on news and public media saying, don't believe the fire maps. They don't know what they're doing. This is not a situation that should go on. So I realize you don't have power to change it. But as a board, if you can contact the State Department and ask them to change this. And here's an example of 570 homes that are impacted. Let them look at this, and maybe they can form a group to help correct the situation, because we need to make our communities safe. That's about it. Any questions you have? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Okay, and Janine, thank you. Aria.
Yes, Aria.
Aria.
Yeah. Good morning, Chairperson and Board. My name is Janine Aria. I live in Black Lake, a community of 555 homes, which is not far from Trilogy in Napomo. 2 Trilogy residents have submitted to this board ample evidence showing that the state fire marshal erred in placing more than half of the area of Trilogy with more than 500 homes in a very high fire hazard zone. This certainly cannot be the only serious error in the state's new fire hazard maps. Such erroneous designation in the state fire marshal's map for this county hurts the county economically in various ways, including reducing real estate values, causing the county to unnecessarily spend taxpayer monies to monitor and enforce state requirements, and reducing housing development, or at least making housing even more expensive, which in turn restricts job growth and overall economic growth. Also, an error such as the one that improperly designates a large portion of Trilogy as a very high fire hazard zone has a domino effect, because it makes neighboring properties seem more dangerous and therefore less desirable. It's also likely caused the state fire marshal to put at least some of the neighboring properties and downwind property, think Embers, in a worse severity zone than they should be. The state fire marshal's 2025 statewide maps, which local jurisdictions are required to adopt without appropriate corrections, are the first ones to be issued in 14 years. How long will it be before corrected maps are issued? Another 10 years, 14 years? Meanwhile, individuals and jurisdictions throughout the state will be bearing the heavy costs of errors for years to come. This is why we cannot assume that the state fire marshal's office is an expert on whom we should rely without fact-checking its results and without pressuring the state to change the law to require the state fire marshal's accountability. Therefore, on behalf of all county residents, I respectfully request that this board not simply adopt the map, but also actively pursue ways to protect the county and its residents from the detrimental consequences of the new map. This endeavor should include, hopefully, letters to the governor enlisting the help of Senator Limon and Assemblyman Greg Hart, as well as working with the California State Association of Counties to lobby for changes to the map and to the relevant law. I urge you to do so, and I sincerely hope you will. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other further comment coming from the public on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Bring it back to the board.
Thank you. Well, I'll just, thank the public for showing up and expressing your concern. I think in general, good governance is getting it right? So we want to ensure that our mapping accurately reflects the conditions on the ground, and we want to protect our communities, and I think that is the state's goal. In this case, there are plenty of examples that have been entered into the record and correspondence submitted by the public to us that really question some of the methodology utilized by the state. So I'd like to encourage the board to bring back in our next legislative platform a position statement that would advocate for an establishment of a formal process for counties to appeal or directly amend fire hazard severity zone maps in the local responsibility area that are issued by the state fire marshal. And then I'd also like to send, at least at minimum, a letter to the California State Fire Marshal's office expressing concern over the newly released fire hazard severity zone mapping in the local responsibility area. And if we can reference materials, correspondence, everything that's been indicated in the record submitted to our board as examples of either outdated or incomplete information that was used to develop the maps, resulting in these inaccuracies, I think that would be helpful as well. So that I'll go ahead and move that, seeing that I don't.
I'll second it.
A bunch of lights on here.
Yeah,
Second from the Supervisor Prashant. Supervisor?
yeah, under discussion. I'm supportive of that. I think that's appropriate. CSAC, or State Association of Counties, and RCRC, I know, have been deeply engaged in this. You know, I think it's a healthy debate as to exactly on what factual basis we draw these fire hazard severity zones. The difference between hazard and risk is a subtlety, but an important one. And CSAC has been involved on the risk side through the insurance commissioner's office to bring some sanity there. The one thing I will say about the hazard that I think is worth keeping in mind is that the hazard posed by embers, or as the technical term being ember cast, is way greater than we intuitively believe. And I think we just need to look at especially the effects in the Eaton fire in Altadena to see a hellscape visited by embers being cast off of the wildlands. So while I think it's fine to question the methodology, seek a carefully crafted determination on a local basis, that's the essence of what CSAC argues for all the time. I think we should also understand that this has got there's some serious work being done here to keep communities safe. And so what Supervisor Paulding presents there, I think, is a good path forward.
Supervisor Moreno.
I agree, and I think we also need to make it clear that the legislature chose to not have this be an open public process with public input, and that was very unfortunate. And so whatever advocacy we do, that any changes in the future, even if it isn't for another 10, 20 years, we need to make sure this doesn't happen again, that the public has that opportunity for input, that the transparency is there.
Yep, thank you. And I would say that with the mapping errors that were highlighted and the idea that people will then say, don't pay attention to the map because we're not really in a fire zone is a problem. I mean, people need to recognize, as was noted on the ember cast really is a very real thing. But what I also think in this though is that it's not really clear, other than the real estate has to be disclosed, but exactly 1, 2, 3 county, you must do this. It's just, you know, we have to do some things, but it's not really clear exactly what this means to all of us, what this role is. So I think it's going to be important for us to get the clarification and add that into the actions that have been put forth here. Do we need to take a vote on this? Or?
Yeah, I did not hear if it included adoption of the ordinance as well.
So I'll modify my motion to add staff's recommendation.
Which we have to do. I will second Stan's.
Okay.
Supervisor Paulding?
Yes.
Supervisor Pashong? Yes. Supervisor Gibson?
Yes.
Supervisor Moreno?
Yes, ma'am.
And Chairperson Ortiz-Lake.
Yes.